Hello, everyone. Look, it's Andrew Lee, MVP here. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the video that I posted the other day. It seems like it's got a lot of interest from people who are starting to get into 3D modeling. And I was just asked to walk through, to slow things down and walk through the process that I took to create the Ben Motorsport building for Assetto Corsa and R Factor. So what I'll do is I will share my screen. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. And I've slowed it down by a factor of 2 so you can get a sense of what's going on here. Right, okay. So first of all, I started with a photo image that I found off the internet. It wasn't the best resolution. It's probably about wallpaper size, but it gives you a good feel of the scale of the building. And what we're particularly interested in is nice clean lines, so I can get sort of the Y and the X axis correct. And so that's what I've done here. This is what you see with the green lines, and that basically tells you whereabouts the exterior dimension should be. So within SketchUp, this is the program I'm using. I've set my axis for my first photo merge using these X and Y coordinates, these axes here. Once that's been set up appropriately, you can see that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to get the scale right here. I've actually created a single block. It's a single square that I've extruded, and that basically gives you a three-dimension representation of this building. And then I go ahead, and if everything has been set up correctly, I can then just sort of extrude the other parts. Like this is, I think that's a staircase that goes up there. It's a core, some services up here, the roof, and so on. So you can see that's sort of happening as we speak. I'll skip forward a little bit. This is actually a tricky part here, the welcome center, because that wasn't actually it's not a square object. It does have some angles to it. So that took a few shots to get right. So what I've done is I've actually created it as a separate component. And then that way I can, as a separate component, you can manipulate that object, outside, you can do it differently. You can do it separate to the rest of the building if you like. So staircases, just a rough layout of where the garages are over here. This is also quite a challenging piece here because once again it's on a different axis. It's not quite flat with the building itself. And then I've sort of used a second image here. There's a construction photo that I found on my forum to sort of get that particular angle. And what I was interested in was actually just grabbing that texture. So you'll see a little bit later on in the video that I actually take that texture and then I manipulate it in Photoshop, and that way I can apply that to the surface of these walls. So I'm pretty happy with that now, and now I've gone for an aerial shot. The reason I've gone for this shot, because it doesn't have a lot of glass, it doesn't have a lot of the final fix items that you'd see on a completed building. It's a construction photo, of course, but it actually gives me some really nice clean lines to work with. So that way, as you can see from the first photo, I could only see about this much of the building. So right now I'm going to attempt to sort of extrude this out, and both this way and that way. I know where the edges are, so the building should start here and then end about there. From what I've read on the forum, it's approximately about 310 meters or 300 meters thereabouts in terms of end to end, which is a massive building when you think about it. It's got a hotel, it's got accommodation, it's got 34 odd garages. It's a mammoth building, that's for sure. So now I'm just going to model up the main straight. This is the view that you get from the main straight. You see there's a couple of different areas here that the spectators can stand on. So I actually need to use a couple of images to get this just right. So I'll just flick forward to that. You can see what that looks like. So getting the right sizing from this angle is quite difficult actually, because it's at a rather extreme angle. That's good because we can see a lot of detail here. We can see what's underneath here. We can see some of the angles, see some of the lights up here, and so on. So that's what we're looking for here. And also a bit later on, you'll see that you'll see where this this banner, if you like, is located in relation to both the track. Then you've got the width of the track, you've got the barrier, you've got this pit lane here. That will give me a lot of detail to work with. So just forward a little bit. Now this is a screen grab from one of the images that shows where the where the spectator stand is, and that's an actual tile from that image. It needs to be cleaned up somewhat, and you need to be able to replicate this across the surface of that that podium. So what I've done is I've opened up in Photoshop, and I made this texture repeatable. That way I can then just overlay that. Hopefully I can get a shot of that shortly. Here's another texture that's created over here. I'm just doing some texturing here, so I'm actually looking for some doors. I think probably the most popular door around here is either a B&D door or something similar, not too different from what you'd see at home, except probably a little bit wider. Big garages here, 6 by 12 meters, I believe. It's almost the size of a double garage at home. And this is the concrete that goes around it. So yeah, so I've overlaid the garage texture onto this. It's a matter of just repeating that for all of the pits. So it's looking quite good now. Here we go, got some glass. Once again, I need to make this a repeatable texture, so I've gone with 2 wide panels up here, followed by about 3 individual glass panels here, and then I'm going to try to line that up with a photo match texture. There's a lot of detail here that you don't need. I think it's a fire extinguisher there, some barrier there. We're going to recreate the barriers anyway once we're in Assetto Corsa or R Factor anyway. So what I want to do is get rid of all of this barrier stuff. So that's just a matter of cleaning that up in Photoshop and then just applying that texture to the surface. So I'll just repeat that process for the entire main straight side of the building. Now ideally, if you're importing this into 3D Studio Max or something like that, you'd make these glass a reflection, so that way it looks true to life when you render it. We don't have that option here in SketchUp, not without plugins and so forth that would work. So right now this is just a temporary thing. They'll have proper glass in the actual track hopefully once we've got that all sorted out. We are having a few issues with textures at the moment. So my mate who runs the R Factor Down Under site, he's helping at the moment. He's actually trying to import this into the track builder for Assetto Corsa, and some of these textures are actually giving us a few problems. I don't know exactly what it is. It's it's just standard. These are standard PNG and JPEG type textures, but that don't seem to work properly. I understand that you may have to render it in using like DDS3, which is a format that's used in DirectX. If you're familiar with gaming, then it's sort of optimized for 3D models within games. I still have to figure out how to do that. I'm trying to learn, trying to get the right plugins on there, but hopefully it'll turn out looking pretty sweet at the end. So right, so these are just some of the other buildings, on top of the main spectator stand that I just need to render out properly that I didn't catch quite before. There's a lot of detail, a lot of little details you don't really, not until you've seen a lot of pictures or you've been there in person, that you'll necessarily remember. So just going back, cleaning that all up, and I think we're nearly done with sort of phase one. Let me just go back to that for a second. So here I'm just modeling one of these garages, and I've created that as a separate object that could be repeated throughout, because they should all be roughly the same size anyway. This is, and hopefully in the next iteration, this is going to have a lot more detail in there. There'll be plasma TVs, there'll be a tire rack, fire extinguishers, so on. There'll be a lot of collision that'll be built into here, so when you bump into things, you don't just walk through it. So these are some of the details that need to be added in the final product. And I think that's starting to look pretty good. So here, this is what we sort of started with. Here it is blown up on the front facing view. I've actually taken that welcome center front face and just imposed that onto that particular piece of the building as well. Just rotate to the front. So yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like now. What I'll do, I'll just flick over SketchUp. I've actually made a few updates to it, so you can see what I was talking about with the main straight. There's a few other items here. This is an under construction photo. It's been updated since. Let me just share the other screen so you can see. Right, okay, so hopefully you can see this this right here. But that's actually, there you go. So I've actually recreated that banner as a PNG, like from scratch, rather than use the image, because I want this nice and clear. So hopefully when I zoom in on some of these items, they still look quite good. We've got where the flag waver stands. That's all to scale. That's all accurate. Talked a little bit about having that main straight area right there. Let me just zoom back out. You can see here the entry, the entry to the pits. It's tire barrier. Hopefully I'll spend some time make that look a little bit more realistic. You get a feel of what it looks like, and this is the cars just burning down through that section right there. Back over to the other view again. So yeah, it's all sort of coming together. If you have any questions, you want me to go into a bit more detail about any of these other items, just let me know. And yeah, till then, I'll speak to you later. Thank you. Cheers.